the African soul was never meant to be ruled by politicians. Rise above feelings, reclaiming the African future through self-mastery. Why are Africans still trapped at the bottom of the world's wealth, dignity, and respect, despite decades of so-called freedom? Because we have not yet conquered ourselves. In this piercing and urgent call to action, the editors of the South African Journey lays bare the uncomfortable truth. Africa is not being destroyed by colonizers or conspiracies, but by uncontrolled feelings, reckless passions, and short-term thinking. Across townships and cities, too many lives are lost in the fog of pleasure now, poverty later. Emotions erupt, money is wasted, futures are burned in the name of living your best life. And all the while, the deeper enemy remains: lack of self-control. This book exposes the real crisis, not economic, but spiritual and psychological. It shows how discipline, delayed gratification, and emotional mastery are the missing keys to Africa's rise. Drawing from ancestral wisdom and brutal modern truths, Kanyane challenges Africans to rise above instinct, reclaim their mental throne, and walk the path of mastery that builds nations from within. If you are tired of being enslaved by your own moods, if you are ready to choose legacy over likes, if you want to teach your children the power of mastering the self, then this is your manual. Because true revolution doesn't begin in Parliament, it begins inside you.
Shiny things, empty lives. How debt became the new oppressor. We are no longer chained by colonial masters. We are now chained by credit cards, clothing accounts, car repayments, and instant gratification. We fought to break free in 1994. But in 2025, we are still not free. Not because of politics, but because of personal financial bondage. South Africans are spending up to 80% of their take-home pay just to service debt, according to Stats SA. That's not survival, that's servitude. And it's not accidental, it's cultural. A nation addicted to appearances. You see it everywhere. Men with our 10,000 watches, but no savings. Women with perfect nails and phones on payment plans, but drowning in anxiety. Families driving new German cars, while skipping school fees and rationing fuel. We are living in a country where appearance has replaced ownership, where the loudest people at the party are often the ones most quietly drowning in debt. We no longer ask, "Can I afford it?" We ask, "Will I look like I can?" How debt became the new oppressor. Debt doesn't knock on your door with a whip. It smiles through the shop window. It whispers, "You deserve it. Buy now, pay later. No deposit required." Debt doesn't oppress with force. It oppresses with temptation. It waits patiently for you to give in, to your emotions, your status anxiety, your loneliness, your hunger for validation. Then it sinks its teeth in. This is not a money problem. It's a mind problem. We are not poor. We are financially untrained and emotionally undisciplined. We spend when we're sad. We splurge to feel seen. We borrow to impress people who are also broke. We eat out while our future starves. This is not economics. This is a crisis of impulse, identity, and spiritual emptiness. What the banks and retailers won't tell you. They profit when you are weak. They rise when you fall. Their bonuses grow when your account sinks. They know you don't need another store account. You can't afford that phone upgrade. You're not buying for use. You're buying for status. And yet they keep selling you the rope to hang yourself with. The culture must be confronted. This is not just personal. This is generational sabotage dressed up as soft life. We need a cultural reset where cash is cooler than credit. Old cars with no payments are more respected than flashy ones bought on loans. Men who save are sexier than men who swipe. Women who build wealth are admired more than women who collect handbags. From flash to freedom. If we want real freedom, we must start saying, "No, I don't need that now. No, I won't finance my ego. No, I won't let debt dictate my destiny." Because you cannot build a powerful nation on the backs of broke citizens pretending to be rich. Final word: debt is the new oppressor, and we are its most loyal servants. It doesn't matter how many degrees you have, how many followers you have, how stylish your Instagram feed is. If 80% of your salary is gone before you touch it, you are not free. And if we don't fix this, our children will inherit not land, but loans. So stop chasing shiny things. Start building a solid life. Because it's not what you wear, drive, or post that makes you powerful. It's what you own and what you can walk away from.
Introduction. We are not just bodies in motion. We are souls in silence, waiting to be remembered. Across the world, in every culture and every era, human beings have searched for meaning, for something deeper than the rush of survival, the noise of cities, or the surface of things. In the West, this search gave rise to meditation apps and mindfulness retreats. In the East, it took the form of monasteries, temples, and sacred breathing. Among indigenous peoples, it was expressed through nature reverence, rhythm, and silence. But what about Africa? Africa, the cradle of civilization, once had its own deep spiritual technologies. They were not imported. They were not branded. They were birthed in the land, whispered in the wind, etched into the rituals of everyday life. Stillness was how elders observed before speaking. Meditation was how wisdom was stored and transmitted. Silent. Prayer was how we communed with the divine, not through volume, but through reverence. But something has shifted. Modern Africa, for all its vibrance, has become noisy, reactive, and spiritually restless. Loud music fills the night. Distraction floods the day. Devices compete for our attention. Emotions rule the streets. In many communities, stillness is ridiculed. Silence is feared. Meditation is dismissed as foreign. Prayer has become performance. We have forgotten that the deepest power does not shout, it whispers. This book is not a condemnation of African culture. It is a restoration of its original brilliance, a return to the disciplines that form strong minds, soft hearts, and wise spirits. It is not written for a religion, a tribe, or a movement. It is written for any human being, especially Africans, who feel a deep inner longing for something real, ancient, and unshakable. If you're tired of the noise, if you're hungry for grounding, if you sense that your power is not in being louder, but in being deeper, then welcome. This book is for you. Let us return, not to escape the world, but to rise above it. Let us rediscover what was buried. Let us begin with the first chapter. But before then, let us consider this story, the noise that killed the soul. How African culture was hijacked by endless stimulation and lost its inner voice. It is 2 a.m. in the township. A mother turns in her bed, exhausted from a week of work. Her child cries softly in the next room, but outside the streets blaze with sound. A tavern nearby pumps music that violates the air. Speakers so loud they don't entertain, they assault. Bass shouting, whistling, drunken laughter. From midnight till sunrise. This isn't a Friday exception. It's a ritual. We are people drowning in noise. And it's not just volume. It's a spiritual disconnection, the loss of stillness. Our forgotten portal to power silence was once sacred. In Africa, elders sat quietly under trees watching. Hunters walked softly through the bushveld listening. Women drew water at dawn, whispering prayers. Children were taught to be still, to listen to the inner world, to greet the ancestors with reverence. Now stillness is mocked. Quietness is boring. Silence is replaced by stimulation. And so we no longer know ourselves. Stillness, meditation, and prayer, the true African technologies. It is in stillness that a man hears his soul. It is in meditation that a woman aligns her purpose. It is in silent prayer that wisdom descends like rain from heaven. But we've lost these portals. They've been slaughtered, not by war, but by all-night parties, tavern takeovers, and a culture of constant sensual stimulation. What we now call African culture in some spaces is not culture. It is chaos dressed in rhythm. We've mistaken dance for destiny, drums for depth, and celebration for self-knowledge. We are not connected. We are distracted. The tavern has replaced the temple. Our communities are plastered, literally and spiritually, by speakers that numb the brain, excite the body, and starve the soul. You cannot reflect when the bass is thundering through your walls. You cannot hear the voice of God when the tavern shouts louder than your thoughts. You cannot raise focused children when the night teaches them nothing but escape, noise, and numbness. We are raising generations who feel everything and know nothing. The mind was meant to lead, not sleep through. African wisdom calls for alertness, what the old griots called eyes in the back of your head, awareness, insight, reflection. But how can we awaken when every weekend becomes a marathon of sensory overload? Parties till 6 a.m., noise with no boundary, excitement with no direction, music with no meaning. This is an African celebration. It's mind anesthesia, a call back to inner Africa. If we are to rise, we must return not to primitive ideas, but to deep inner disciplines. Mornings of silent prayer where you speak less and listen more. Evenings of unplugged stillness where the mind is allowed to breathe. Days with no loud music, no drinking, no noise, just space to reconnect. We must teach our children that power is not in the party, is in the presence. African. Greatness will never come from louder speakers. It will come from quieter souls. Final word. Bring back the sacred noise makes slaves. Stillness makes sages. If we want to find our African genius again, we must silence the tavern, switch off the endless bass, and reintroduce the old forgotten ways, stillness, thought, prayer, wisdom, discipline, vision. Because if we don't, we will dance ourselves to death. Chapter 1 on the death of the inner life in Africa. There was a time when the African was rooted, not in noise, not in performance, but in presence. You would find him sitting under a tree watching the wind roll across the grasslands. You'd find her by the river, grinding maize and whispering prayers to the morning sun. Children were not only taught how to speak, but when not to speak. Silence was strength. Stillness was reverence. A quiet man was not mocked. He was feared. A praying woman was not ignored. She was the heartbeat of the village. That Africa is dying. And what's killing it is not colonialism, poverty, or racism. What's killing it is noise. Endless, senseless, seductive noise. A culture hijacked by stimulation today. In the townships and urban villages, the spiritual center of African life has been replaced by taverns, party tents, and open-air speakers that scream into the sky till the sun rises. You cannot think. You cannot pray. You cannot reflect. You cannot hear your own soul. What used to be a community is now an open-air nightclub. The community is plastered, not with pamphlets or ideas, but with baselines and beer, seduction, and stimulation. We've allowed entertainment to colonize the spirit, and we've called it culture. But let's be honest, this isn't African joy. This is escape. We are not celebrating life. We are running from it, running from pain, running from responsibility, running from ourselves. We fear quiet because quiet reminds us of the emptiness. We avoid silence because silence forces us to listen, and what we hear might demand change. So, we turn up the volume and shut off the soul. The inner life has been killed. What is the inner life? It is the part of you that thinks, feels, reflects, prays, and wrestles with truth. It is your ability to know yourself, not by what you wear or how you perform, but by what you believe, endure, and seek. In the past, the African soul was fed daily by still mornings of observation, by deep listening to the land and sky, by rituals rooted in reverence, by prayers that required no microphones. But now, the average African child knows TikTok dances, but not ancestral wisdom. He can recite rap lyrics, but cannot sit still for 5 minutes. She can entertain a crowd, but not commune with her own heart. We have raised a generation that is loud, reactive, sensual, and directionless, not because they are evil, but because their inner life was never developed. The real crisis is not the economy. It's the soul. You can fix potholes. You can build houses. You can even install Wi-Fi. But if the soul of the people is lost, no development will stick. The greatest wealth of Africa is not in her soil. It is in her inner life. And that life must be restored, one still moment at a time. What comes next in the next chapters? We will journey into the 3 lost roads to African spiritual power. Stillness, the first gate of strength meditation, the forgotten practice of mental control silent prayer. Communion without performance. Each of these is a tool of resurrection. They're not foreign. They are ours. But we must reclaim them with fire in our bellies and reverence in our hearts. Africa will rise again, not by making more noise, but by hearing herself again. Chapter 2, Stillness, the first gate to power. The lion doesn't roar when it hunts. Power moves in silence. Long before books and conferences, African power was nurtured in the quiet places. A man would disappear into the hills for days, not to escape, but to listen. A woman would walk at dawn, not just to fetch water, but to center her spirit. Before the warrior fought, before the healer healed, before the chief judged, there was stillness. Stillness is not laziness. It is not doing nothing. Stillness is the sacred act of preparation. It is how the African soul used to gather strength before facing life. What is stillness? Stillness is a posture of alert inner calm. It is turning off the noise, turning inward, paying attention to what matters. It's the quiet morning before work. It's the breath before answering in anger. It's the choice to pause before reacting, posting, or spending. It's the moment when you retreat from stimulation to reconnect with yourself. Stillness is not just physical. It is mental, emotional, and spiritual. It is command over the self. Why stillness is power in stillness. The fog clears. The lies fade. The truth rises. Chapter 5. Why these gates were slaughtered. The most effective way to control a people is not to silence them, it is to fill them with noise. It may sound harsh, but it is true. What we now call African culture in many communities is not a celebration of identity. It is a carefully engineered system of spiritual sedation. The gates of stillness, meditation, and silent prayer were not lost by accident. They were slaughtered systematically, deliberately, and slowly until the soul of the African began to forget how to hear itself. This chapter is about unmasking the murderers and the one. Entertainment and spiritual warfare taverns, loudspeakers, nightclubs, street parties, music festivals that stretch till sunrise. These are not just lifestyle choices. They are weapons. The new colonizer does not wear a uniform. He sells sound systems. He promotes influencers. He rewards performance. Today, the African is not physically enslaved. He is mentally overstimulated. Too stimulated to reflect. Too stimulated to think. Too stimulated to connect with God or self. And it is all sold as fun. But real fun does not steal your mornings, destroy your discipline, and hollow out your spiritual depth. Noise keeps you from awakening. Why so much noise? Because silence leads to awakening, and awakening leads to freedom, and freedom leads to power. A still meditating, prayerful African is dangerous. He becomes a questioner, a planner, a master of emotions, a threat to manipulation. That is why you are constantly distracted. Your phone pings. The music blares. Social media baits you. Politics enrages you. And all the while, you never go inward, because inward is where revolutions are born. 3. Performance religion replaced personal spirituality. Churches became loud to compete with the taverns. Preachers shouted to be heard above the bass lines. And in the process, we lost silent prayer. We turned spirituality into spectacle. Prayer became performance. Stillness was traded for showmanship. Even though seeking God was swept into noise-based worship, where the louder the room, the more anointed it felt. But power does not need to shout. The old African priests spoke softly. Their presence was enough. Their silence was strength. Or global culture hijacked African depth. Colonialism stole the land, but global pop culture stole the soul. Our youth no longer look inward for power. They look to pop stars' trending dances, external validation, performative social media rituals. When you disconnect a people from their soul, you make them permanent consumers, and that's what we've become. Consumers of stimulation, not creators of inner substance. 5. The poverty of identity. Africans don't know who they are without noise. They think to be African is to dance. To be African is to party. To be African is to react loudly, sing loudly, live loudly. But true African identity is not about volume, it is about depth. Our ancestors were disciplined, measured, spiritually alert, and internally governed. Noise is not our heritage. Wisdom is final word. The slaughter of the three gates, stillness, meditation, and silent prayer was not a mistake. It was the spiritual assassination of a continent's future. But now the truth has been spoken, and what was slaughtered can be resurrected. The silence can return. The discipline can be restored. The mind can be retrained. The spirit can awaken. And when it does, no system, political, cultural, or economic, will be able to contain the power of a people who have remembered how to hear themselves again. Chapter 6, building your personal temple. You are the sanctuary. Build yourself as sacred ground. Now that we have exposed the slaughter, it is time to rebuild, not with cement, not with donations, not with slogans, but with daily acts of discipline that turn your life into a temple of power. Because in a world where everyone is building platforms, stages, and brands, the wise build something rarer, an inner life. Stillness, meditation, and silent prayer are not just ideas. They must become habits. They must become sacred architecture within your day, like pillars in a spiritual house that cannot be shaken. 1. Designing your daily rhythm of the spirit. Your temple is not out. There, it is built moment by moment. In your rhythm, to build your personal temple, you must create space, protect time, set intention, and then repeat it until it becomes your way of being. Example of a daily spiritual rhythm. Morning, 5 to 6 a.m. Wake in stillness. No phone, no radio. Just sit or kneel in silence. Breathe deeply. Enter into silent prayer. Speak intentions for your day. Ask for wisdom. Be quiet enough to receive it. Midday, break or pause. Step away from noise. Go to a corner. Close your eyes. Breathe. Meditate. Anchor yourself in stillness before returning to the world. Evening after sunset, light a candle. Sit in low light. Reflect on your day. Offer silent gratitude or repentance. Enter stillness again to unwind the noise of the day. Sleep like one whose soul has returned home. This rhythm is how you stop reacting and start reigning. 2. Sacred spaces in the township or village. You don't need a monastery. You need intentionality. Wherever you live, even in a shack, a back room, a rendezvous, you can create a corner of stillness. The mat, a scarf, a stool, or a simple stone as an altar. Light a candle, burn natural incense, or place a sacred object. Set boundaries. This is my quiet space. It is for the spirit. Once that space is established, your soul will begin to recognize it. Even if chaos is around you, your spirit will know where to return to. 3. Guarding your gate. A temple is sacred because it is protected. Your time for stillness, meditation, and silent prayer must be guarded like gold. You must say no to calls that disturb your early morning, people who mock your silence, media that steals your attention, a schedule that has no room for your soul. You can serve others all day, but you must serve your own spirit first. 4. Teaching the household the way of the temple. When you build your temple, your children will watch. Let them see you sit quietly, see you praying without making noise, watch you walk away from noise with dignity. Learn that you are not just a body, but a sacred space. Teach them that stillness is strength, that silence is holy, that the mind must be trained, not entertained. This is how generations change, not with shouting, but with example. 5. When you fall off, return gently. There will be days you forget. There will be weeks when life pulls you into chaos again. Do not feel shame. Do not say I've failed. Just return. Like a prodigal son, like a long-lost daughter. Your temple waits for you. Your spirit misses you. Come home to it. Final word. You don't need church bells. You don't need a stage. You don't need applause. You need space, discipline, and devotion. And you will become holy ground. Because the future of Africa is not just in protest or politics. It is in people who build temples of the spirit, in dusty streets, in small rooms, in mourning silence. This is how a new civilization begins. Chapter 7. Return to the real. Africa will rise, not by noise, but by remembering its soul. We have wandered, not just from land, not just from tradition, but from ourselves. We replaced depth with hype. We swapped presence for performance. We traded ancestral stillness for stimulation from machines and music. And now a continent with fire, in its blood and gold in its soil, often finds itself spiritually bankrupt. Loud, emotional, sensual, but hollow. This book is not just a critique. It is a call. Return to the real. The real is not far. It's forgotten. The real is not something you invent. It's something you remember. It's the voice of your grandmother whispering blessings over tea. It's the dignity of your grandfather sitting silently before speaking. It's the sense of reverence that once soaked the land, the sky, the fire. The real is not lost. It is buried under speakers, selfies, and shame. You must dig it up. Not with your hands, but with your habits. Quiet rebellion. What if the most revolutionary thing you could do today is turn down the volume? What if the real African revolution is not in elections or protests, but in men who sit in stillness before they act? Women who meditate before they react. Children who learn to pray before they perform. This is not weakness. This is power from within. From noise culture to soul. Culture, we've had enough. Enough of street parties that leave us broke. Enough of loud music and louder mouths. Enough of being known for dance, but not for depth. Let this be the generation that remembers the forgotten technologies of the spirit. Stillness, where clarity is born. Meditation, where mastery is trained. Silent prayer, where power is restored. And let us build a new soul culture. One that is not defined by consumption, but by contemplation. What happens when we return? You will notice it in your posture, in your patience, in your parenting, in your presence. You will become the calmest person in the room, the clearest voice in chaos, the one who carries peace like a garment. You won't be loud. You won't need to be, because you will carry the weight of presence, not noise. Ancestral silence awaits. The old ways are not dead. They're waiting for you, in the tree you pass without noticing, in the quiet breath before sleep, in the shadow of your elders' forgotten teachings. They are calling you not to escape, but to reclaim, not to entertain, but to build, not to react, but to rule your inner world. Chapter 8. The Debt Trap. How emotions have enslaved a nation. When you cannot say no to your feelings, your bank account becomes your prison. South. Africans are not just struggling, they are being financially devoured, not by invaders, but by uncontrolled desire. According to Stats, many South Africans are now spending up to 80% of their take-home pay just to service debt. Let that sink in. We are not living. We are borrowing to survive the consequences of yesterday's decisions. This is not poverty alone. This is a psychological epidemic. We are a people addicted to spending money we don't have, to impress people we don't know, for things we don't need, driven by feelings we refuse to govern. 1. Debt is not a financial problem. It's an emotional one. Look around. A man gets paid. By the weekend, he's broke. But the new sneakers? Clean. A woman with a job buys luxury hair and nails on credit, while her fridge is empty. A family with one income buys a car that consumes half their salary just to look successful. This isn't budgeting failure. It's emotional. Slavery. We spend not from logic, but from pain, ego, pressure, and insecurity. We are chasing healing through items, and all we find is more chains. That's true. Credit culture. The modern colonizer, we say, fought to break physical chains. Now we've wrapped ourselves in digital debt chains. Retail stores and banks don't care about your future. They care about your emotions today. Buy now, pay later. Zero deposit. You deserve it. Their slogans are weapons of mental colonization, and we have fallen for it, not because we are weak, but because we never learned self-mastery. 3. The link between feelings and financial collapse. When your emotions lead, your wallet bleeds. You're sad. You swipe for comfort. You're insecure. You buy status. You're bored. You click add to cart. You're pressured. You host a party you can't afford. The result? Debt, anxiety, broken dreams, generational poverty. Found 4. This is not how we were meant to live. Africans were once planners, builders, legacy-minded people. But somewhere along the line, we were told, live your best life now. If you've got it, flaunt it. Life is short. Enjoy it while you can. Now we live for weekends and starve on Mondays. 5. The cure is not more money, it's self-mastery. We don't need financial bailouts. We need emotional discipline. We must train ourselves to say no to unnecessary spending, delay pleasure until it aligns with purpose, define success as ownership, not appearance, use cash, not credit, educate our children about value, not vanity. 6. The new revolution. Financial self-governance. If we want to reclaim Africa's future, we must start by reclaiming our paychecks. Self-mastery is the real black empowerment. Budgeting is a form of protest. Financial literacy is a weapon. Delayed gratification is the new liberation struggle. Final word, we fought to break chains in 1994. Now we must fight to break financial chains in 2025. Let the world spin. Let the rich flex. Let the influencers flaunt. You rise above feelings. Your future is not built by what you buy. It is built by what you refuse to buy. Final word. You are the sacred ground. Let them keep shouting. Let them keep dancing for emptiness. You return. Return to the morning silence. Return to the disciplined mind. Return to the God who speaks without noise. You are the sanctuary now. And when Africa has enough sanctuaries built within her people, she will no longer need rescuing. She will rise from within, rise above feelings, reclaiming the African future through self-mastery. By Chris Kanyane. In every African township, village, and city, there are stories. Brilliant, painful, recurring stories. A man receives a small payday and celebrates with loud music, drinks, and meat sizzling on the fire. A woman breaks her silence in the face of betrayal, but ends up burning bridges she later needs to cross. Youth gather around entertainment before responsibility. Emotions explode. Passions flare. Futures vanish. And all of it feels justified. But here's the truth. Feelings and passions, when ungoverned, are not freedom. They are chains. The African dilemma. Pleasure now. Poverty later is no insult, but a diagnosis born of love. Many of our people have been conditioned by pain, by oppression, by history, to chase short-term pleasure as a distraction from long-term struggle. We drown today's sorrows in noise, alcohol, fashion, social media wars, or cheap dopamine. But when the dust settles, the bills remain. The opportunities are lost. The future is squandered. This is not just an economic problem. It is a psychological and spiritual condition. Animals obey feelings. Humans rise above them. In the animal kingdom, there is no self-control. Hunger strikes, they hunt. Anger boils. They bite. Pleasure calls, they pounce. But we are not animals. What separates a lion from a leader is the ability to govern the self. What elevates a woman above instinct is not her pain, but her power to feel deeply yet act wisely. Self-control is not denial, it is dominion. And until we master it, we remain vulnerable, not to the white man, not to colonialism, not to conspiracies, but to ourselves. Self-control, the hidden wealth of nations. Forget gold, forget oil. The richest countries on earth are not those with the most resources, but those with citizens who can delay gratification, work with discipline, and invest in the unseen. The future belongs to those who prepare, not those who feel. If we want Africa to rise, and not just in slogans and songs, we must teach the next generation to say no to momentary pleasure if it endangers permanent progress. Build before. Celebrating. Use the mind to govern emotion, not the other way around. Mind over mood. Vision over impulse. Legacy over likes. Our call to action. Be the master, not the slave. The new African revolution will not be fought with guns, fists, or hashtags. It will be fought within. in the quiet corners of our hearts where decisions are made. It is in choosing to invest rather than impress. It is in showing up 5 a.m. while others still sleep. It is in teaching our children that feelings are real, but they must never reign. Final word. From reaction to responsibility, to be driven by feelings is to remain stuck in the cycle of regret. But to govern your inner world is to rise slowly, steadily, silently into power. Let this be the era where Africans reclaim the throne of their own minds. Because our greatest wealth is not buried underground, it is buried within. Final word. Be your own self in a world of noise. Be an island of silence. In a world of chaos, be a sanctuary of calm. In a world of gossip, be a guardian of your own path. Let this be the closing command of this book, not as a suggestion, but as a sacred vow to yourself. Be your own self. Do not follow polluted streams where people gather to laugh at others, dissect their mistakes, or celebrate their downfall. That is not power. That is poison. Your soul was not born to be a spectator in other people's scandals. You were born to build, to reflect, to rise. Thathay bizinisi lahoj, this ancient idiom on your spirit like a sacred tattoo. Thathay bizinisi lako, mind, your own business. Because okwenziwa ngomunye umuntua kunandaba yako. What another person does is none of your concern. Your path is yours. Your pace is yours. Your soul is yours. Every moment you spend watching others, reacting to others, or trying to fix others is a moment stolen from your own sacred construction. You are not called to be the crowd. The crowd will always shout. They'll say you're too quiet. They'll say you've changed. They'll say you're arrogant because you no longer sit at their noisy tables. But the truth is, you are awakening. You are walking away. Not because you hate them, but because you love your soul more than their approval. Final blessing. May your mornings be filled with stillness. May your thoughts be governed by meditation. May your spirit burn quietly with sacred prayer. May your mind be your sanctuary, not a battlefield. And when the world calls you back to the noise, back to the parties, the gossip, the stimulation, smile gently and return to your temple, because the greatest revolution is not in changing others. It is in becoming who you were before the world told you who to be. Be your own self and never look back. Excellent. Below is your final word. Transformed into a new African philosophy, a moral code, spiritual worldview, and inner rebellion. This is not just a closing chapter. It's a way of life. The philosophy of sacred selfhood, new African way, rooted in inner sovereignty, stillness, and spiritual independence foundational ethos. Thata ibizini silaho. Mind your soul's mission. Govern your inner world. Let the noise pass by, right? The self is sacred. Every African is born not just into a tribe or a family, but into a soul assignment. You are not just flesh. You're fire wrapped in breath. You're not born to be the echo of a crowd. You are born to be a presence. To neglect yourself while obsessing over others is to betray your own sacred ground. And Senu, silence is a spiritual practice. Noise is not neutral. It is spiritual pollution. Stillness is not laziness. It is ancestral technology. Let the drum quiet. Let the tavern fall silent. Let the breath lead. Only then can the divine speak. Clearly, he who cannot sit still cannot hear truth. She who cannot turn off the noise cannot turn on the light within. Gossip is a spiritual disease where people gather to dissect others. Run. They are eating spiritual corpses. They are drunk on distraction. They are poor in spirit, no matter how loud they laugh. You do not belong there. Your soul has higher appointments than tavern talk, street drama, and useless opinion sharing. Let this proverb live in your blood. Okwenziwa ngomunye umuntu akunandaba yaho. What another person does is none of your concern. Before. Build your inner temple. Your power is not on billboards, not in hashtags, not in loud reputations. It is in the quiet of your room before sunrise, the return of your breath after heartbreak, the small discipline done daily that no one applauds but heaven notices. You are a sanctuary. Act like one. The sacred selfhood movement Africa's new path of inner sovereignty, stillness, and spiritual discipline. Declaration of purpose. We are the generation that turns away from noise, gossip, and performance and returns to the inner temple. We believe the greatest revolution in Africa is not political. It is personal. The sacred selfhood movement is a call to reclaim the self from distraction, restore ancestral wisdom through inner silence, revive spiritual discipline as the foundation of dignity and power. The crisis. We reject the disease that has overtaken our culture. Gossip as entertainment, loudness as a substitute for wisdom, parties as a way to numb pain, comparison as a way of life, reaction instead of reflection. This is not African. Heritage, it is spiritual colonization. We will no longer dance for our own destruction. The new African ethos. Thatha ibizinisi lacho, mind your soul's work. Guard your energy. Stay on your sacred assignment. This is not selfishness. It is spiritual stewardship. We will no longer give our energy to things that do not build our spirit. The 4 pillars of sacred selfhood. 1. Stillness. We rise early. We sit in silence. We listen before speaking. Stillness is how we hear God again. Meditation. We train the mind. We control our emotions. Meditation is how we become warriors in a chaotic world. Silent prayer. We speak to the divine without performance. Prayer is not show. It is communion with source. Solitude. We are not afraid to walk alone. We walk away from polluted gatherings. We become whole in our own company, the community. We build. We do not gossip. We do not compete. We do not shout to be seen. We form circles of stillness, not stadiums of noise. We raise children who reflect, not just react. We build homes where silence is sacred, not strange. Our slogan, be your own self and never look back. The Indian with one banana. How cultural discipline turns scarcity into strategy. There's a saying in many African households, an Indian becomes rich with just one banana. It's not mockery, it's respect, admiration. It's the streets' way of saying they see what we don't. They do what we don't. They don't waste. They don't rush. They don't pretend. They build. While others talk of transformation, they transform corners into empires. While others chase B funding, they build from R5 up. While others march for land, they rent small shops and create land value by trading. This isn't magic. It's mentality. The banana is not the business. It's the beginning, that one banana. It's a symbol. It represents starting with what you have. Selling what others ignore, turning low margins into high consistency, reinvesting before showing off, mastering the small before scaling up. An Indian trader doesn't need 50 bananas. They need one and the ability to make it work every day for years. That banana becomes a table. The table becomes a fruit stall. The stall becomes a store. The store becomes a chain. And before you know it, the guy who sold fruit at the Robots owns half the block. Lessons from the banana. Let's unpack the real wealth code hidden in that banana. Discipline over drama, no time for image, no space for laziness. They work, they serve, they show up. No long meetings about economic injustice, just hustle. Family and staff, not burden. From young age, the kids learn margins, customer care, stock taking. Business is not a job, it's the family backbone. Capital isn't borrowed, it's inherited from sweat. Small wins, long games. They know that R3 profit today, compounded daily, beats R30,000 of unfunded dreams. They don't go viral, they go deep. Day after day, month after month, quiet, steady, relentless. Customer service as strategy, a greeting, a memory, a gesture. Not manipulation, just human economics. They don't just sell, they anchor trust. The African confession. Let's admit it, we saw the same banana, but we threw it. And we waited for funding. We wanted the flashy brand first. We mocked the R1 profit. We thought starting small was shameful. And while we laughed, they launched. Wow. We waited for government. They became government in their own shops. This chapter isn't about glorifying one race. It's about extracting the hidden blueprint of those who mastered the bottom of the pyramid without slogans or savings. They didn't just survive apartheid, they out-traded it. And today they're still out-trading everyone else. What the? Indian trader knows that we forgot they know. People don't need luxury. They need reliability. Business is not always about invention. It's about consistency. You don't need to own the building. You need to own the trust. You don't need loans. You need rotation, reuse, reinvestment. They didn't build malls. They built margins. They didn't cry about capital. They multiplied coin and it worked. Final word. Be the banana builder. So what must we do? Don't wait for big capital. Start small. Perfect small. Don't fake success. Build substance. Don't copy the noise. Study the moves. Don't shame the small hustle. Sharpen it. Expand it. The Indian with one banana teaches us. You don't need everything to start something. You just need eyes to see value, hands that are not afraid of work, and a spirit that doesn't complain when it can create. In every township, on every corner, someone is holding a banana. The question is, will you eat it or multiply it?